My family laughed at my pitch one Christmas. 4 years later, I owned 10% of the hospital where my dad had worked for 20 years. Now, at his 65th birthday party, they're trying to get in touch with me. My father, Leonard Whitmore, looked me straight in the eye and said, in front of friends, family, and colleagues, 3 of my kids made me proud. One made me question if he's really mine. The room burst into laughter. Glasses clinked, someone hit the table, and in that moment, I realized I no longer belonged in that house. I stood up without a word. No shouting, just clarity. I reached into my coat and pulled out a sleek black envelope, the one with the notarized papers giving my father 10% ownership in the hospital he had worked at for 2 decades. I laid it on the table and, in a calm, cold voice, said, I was going to give this to you today. Not anymore. I turned, walked past my shocked sisters, and left without looking back. A month later, my mother, Eleanor, called. Her voice shook. She said she was proud of me. But it was too late. My name is Caleb Whitmore. I'm 30 years old and the founder and CEO of Nexus Care, a healthcare tech company based in Austin, Texas. I built it from nothing. And this is the story of how being rejected by my family pushed me to become the man they never believed I could be. I grew up the youngest of 4 kids, 3 older sisters and me. We lived comfortably in Houston. My father, Leonard, was a senior accountant at a major hospital. My mother, Eleanor, stayed home. With a household income over 6 figures, we never lacked anything. My sisters were seen as perfect daughters. Bianca, the oldest, was 10 years ahead of me and became a physician. Serena, 7 years older, became a bank branch manager. And Tessa, just 3 years older, started her law firm before she turned 30. To our extended family, Leonard and Eleanor had raised 3 model daughters. And then there was me, Caleb, the one they gradually stopped talking about. It wasn't that I lacked goals. I simply had a vision they didn't understand. When I got accepted to study information technology, I thought they'd support me. Instead, I got silence. My father didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just gave me a disappointed look and said, men who stare at screens all day chase digital dreams that never come true. Then he gave me 2 options. Follow in my sister's footsteps, and he'd pay for everything, or go my own way, and I'd get nothing. I chose my own path. After that, things changed at home. No one asked me to leave, but I was treated differently. If I walked into the kitchen, someone left. If I sat in the living room, the room went quiet. Dinner was served in shifts, my plate always separate from theirs. During those final months at home before college, I worked part-time at a local shop. My feet hurt, my hands were rough, and I came home late. Still, I was proud. No one asked how I was. Not even my sisters. They had tried to talk me out of it once, and after that, they never brought it up again. When college started, I packed an old suitcase, took out a student loan that barely covered tuition, and left. I worked nights and weekends to get by. Still, I came home for holidays. When my mom called, she didn't ask how I was doing, just told me what time dinner would be. I still showed up, not because I had to, but because a part of me wanted to prove something. After graduation, I worked for 3 years. I saved everything, took freelance jobs, worked late, skipped vacations. I paid off my loans and saved over $100,000. I didn't go home anymore. The silence had said enough. When I was finally ready to start my business, what would become Pulseware Systems, I still had a bit of hope. Maybe if I showed them the plan, they'd finally see what I saw. So I printed out the proposal and returned home one last time, for Christmas. The house was quiet when I arrived early. I asked my parents and sisters to sit in the living room for 20 minutes. They sat reluctantly. I handed them each a printed business plan. Pulseware Systems was a healthcare tech idea with market research, growth projections, and a request for $100,000 in exchange for 20% equity. I wasn't expecting applause, but I didn't expect the ridicule either. My father, Malcolm, didn't read past the first page. "You're pitching an app you made in your apartment to a room full of professionals?" he said. Sylvia, the oldest, chimed in. "You've got no clients, no revenue, And you want us to invest? You sound like a gamble, Landon. Then Diana, always the pragmatic one, asked, if it's so great, why hasn't anyone else funded it? Finally, Belle, the youngest, said, freelancing fits you better. Running a business? That's not who you are. They laughed, not loudly, but in that way that erodes what little pride you've managed to hold on to. I didn't argue. I closed the folders, slipped them back into my bag, and stood up. Nothing else needed to be said. I left, went home to my tiny apartment, opened my laptop, and rewrote the plan. This time for myself alone. 2 months later, Pulseware Systems launched. Our first office was a room above a bookstore. The team, me, a junior engineer, and a part-time admin. No family, no attention, just determination. At first, we survived on pure hustle. We built basic software for small clinics, appointment management, patient records, billing systems. Some months, after covering rent and salaries, I had only a few $100s left. I slept under my desk some nights after debugging software until 3 a.m. projects were delayed. Clients disappeared. I lost 10 pounds in the first 3 months. But I never gave up. By the end of our first year, we turned a profit, barely. $20,000 left after all expenses. No investors, no family support, just hard work. In year 2, I secured a $100,000 bank loan. We bought better equipment, hired 2 more developers, and moved into a larger office. Our software got stronger. We landed contracts with bigger clinics. That's when everything changed. One clinic using our system referred us to a regional healthcare network. That led to interest from a health tech investment fund. In year 3, we signed a deal with a major hospital system. I didn't celebrate. I just stared at the signed agreement, tired, but proud. 2 weeks later, my financial advisor called. Landon, based on assets and projections, Pulseware is valued at $2.3 million. I sat in silence, then smiled. The same son they once dismissed had built a multi-million-dollar business, with zero help from any of them. And they didn't even know it. Even after our success, I stayed quiet. No social media posts, no family updates, no calls. I figured that chapter was closed, 2 separate worlds, never meeting again. Then 6 months ago, my phone rang. It was my mother, Helena. After 4 years, she didn't ask how I was or mention the company. She just said, your father's turning 65. We're throwing a party. Come if you can. That was it. Less than a minute. No warmth. No apology. Just an invite. Still, something in me sparked. Maybe hope. Maybe just old habit. I said, sure. Then I had an idea. 3 months earlier, Pulseware had signed a groundbreaking deal with North Shore Medical, a private hospital outside Austin, where my father, Douglas, had worked as an accountant for over 20 years. When finalizing the contract, I made a bold request. I want to convert our entire service fee into equity, I told the director. He leaned back, looked me in the eye, and said, we know who you are, Mr. Shaw. If you're in, we'll never need to worry. My family laughed at my pitch on Christmas. 4 years later, I owned 10% of the hospital my dad worked at for 20 years. Now they're trying to reach me, at his 65th birthday party. My father, Leonard Whitmore, looked straight at me in front of dozens of relatives, friends, and colleagues and said, 3 made me proud. 1 made me check our DNA. Laughter exploded. Glasses clinked. Someone slapped the table. And in that moment, I knew, I didn't belong in that house anymore. I stood up, quietly. No anger. No outburst. Just clarity. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a sleek black envelope, the one with the notarized documents giving my father 10% equity in the hospital where he had worked for 2 decades. I placed it on the table in front of him and said calmly, I was going to give this to you today. Not anymore. Then I walked past my stunned sisters and out of the house. I didn't say another word. A month later, my mother, Leonard, called me. Her voice trembled. She said she was proud of me. But it was too late. My name is Caleb Whitmore. I'm 30 years old. I'm the founder and CEO of Nexus Care, a healthcare tech company based in Austin, Texas. I built it from nothing. And this is the story of how my family's rejection made me the man they never believed I could be. Growing up, I was the youngest of four, three older sisters and me. We lived a comfortable life in Houston. My dad, Leonard, was a senior accountant at a major hospital. My mom, Eleanor, stayed home to raise us. Our family income easily cleared 6 figures. We never wanted for anything. My sisters were stars. Bianca, the oldest, was 10 years older and became a physician. Serena, 7 years older, became a bank director. And Tessa, just 3 years older, launched her own law firm before she turned 30. Everyone praised my parents, 3 brilliant daughters. And then there was me, Caleb. The one they stopped talking about. Not because I didn't have ambition, but because I had a different vision, one they didn't understand. When I got accepted to study information technology, I expected support. Instead, I got silence. My father didn't yell. He just looked at me with disappointment and said, "Men who sit behind screens all day end up chasing digital illusions." Then he gave me 2 options. Follow one of my sister's paths and he'd cover everything. Or go my own way, and get nothing. I chose my way. After that, things at home changed. No one told me to leave, but I was no longer treated the same. If I entered the kitchen, someone left. The living room went silent when I sat down. Dinner? Served separately. I worked part-time at a local shop before college. Long hours, aching feet, dry hands. No one ever asked how I was doing. When I left for school, I had an old suitcase and a tiny student loan. I worked evenings and weekends to survive. But every holiday, when my mom called and told me what time dinner was, I still showed up. Not out of obligation, but because some small part of me still wanted to prove I was worth something. After graduation, I worked for 3 years. Freelanced, skipped vacations, paid off my loans, saved $100,000. Then I decided to start my own company. What would become Pulseware Systems? I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd believe in me if they saw the plan. So, I printed the pitch and brought it home on Christmas. They sat down, reluctantly. I handed out folders, my business plan, market data, a $100,000 investment ask for 20% equity. My father didn't even read it. He scoffed. "You're in a room of professionals, law, banking, medicine, and you want us to back an app?" Sylvia, my oldest sister, said, "No clients. No cash flow. You sound like a risk." Diana added, "If it's so great, why hasn't anyone else invested?" And Belle simply said, "Freelancing suits you better. Running a company? That's not you." They laughed. Not loud, but sharp enough to shatter every bit of confidence I had. I didn't argue, just packed my bag and left. That night, I rewrote the business plan, this time for me. 2 months later, Pulseware Systems launched. The team? Just me, 1 junior engineer, and a part-time assistant. We built simple platforms for clinics, appointment systems, patient records, billing. Some months, we had less than $500 after rent and salaries. I slept under my desk. Fixed bugs till 3 a.m. Got ghosted by clients. Lost 10 pounds the first quarter. But I didn't fold. By the end of year 1, we were profitable. Barely, but we made it. $20,000 after expenses. No investors. No family support. Just grit. Year 2, we got a $100,000 bank loan. Hired more developers. Landed bigger contracts. Then came the turning point. A local hospital referred us to a regional healthcare network. That led to a deal with a health tech investment fund. By year 3, we signed with a major hospital system. I didn't celebrate, just stared at the contract, quietly proud. 2 weeks later, my financial advisor said, "Caleb, based on assets and projections, Pulseware is worth $2.3 million. The boy they once mocked had built a multi-million-dollar company, alone. And they had no idea. I didn't post about it. Didn't call home. I thought we were done. Until 6 months ago, my mom called. "Your father's turning 65 next month. We're hosting a party. Come if you can." No apology. No warmth. Just logistics. I said, "Sure." Because I had a plan. 3 months before that call, Pulseware had signed a major deal with North Shore Medical, the same hospital my dad worked at for 20 years. During the deal, I told the director, I want to convert our service fee into equity. 3 weeks later, I became a 10% shareholder. For the party, I printed the transfer papers, giving my dad 10% equity as a legacy gift. Not to impress him, just to say, I never forgot you, even when you forgot me. I arrived at 10 a.m. The house looked just like I remembered. I brought vintage wine in the black envelope with the transfer documents. But I waited. I needed to see if I was invited out of love or obligation. By 11, guests filled the house. A few recognized me, asked vague questions, but no one really listened. Then, my father stood up. I'm proud of my daughters, Isla, Rowan, Camille. Medicine, banking, law. The crowd clapped. Then he looked straight at me and said, 3 made me proud. 1 made me double-check our DNA. Laughter, clinking glasses, even applause. I stood up, calmly. I know not everyone wanted me here. Maybe Mom invited me just to keep up appearances. But let me be clear, I said. I opened my folder and held up the legal papers. Last month, I became the 3rd largest shareholder in North Shore Medical. I was going to give Dad 10%, a legacy gift. But after today, I realize this family doesn't need what I've built. The room was silent. My father reached for the papers. So what are you trying to prove? He asked. I looked at him. Nothing. I just wanted to show I never stopped thinking about you. Then I zipped the folder shut. After today, I'm canceling the transfer. I turned to leave. Then, louder. You don't need to check the DNA, Dad. After today, consider that you no longer have a son. No yelling. Just silence. 3 days later, my mom called. She apologized. Said my dad was just upset. Said she was proud of me. I stayed quiet. Later that night, a text from my sister Rachel. We were wrong. You're the only one who stood alone. I didn't respond. A month later, I was invited to speak at a healthcare tech conference. I almost declined, but something told me it was time. I wore no suit, brought no slides, just a name badge and my story. I told them how I built a company with no support, how I walked out of a Christmas dinner with nothing but my dignity. 2 days later, the story hit the front page of a business journal. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. We're proud of you. I didn't smile, just stared at the screen. Because I knew, they only remembered I existed once the world clapped first. Now, I walk alone. Not because I don't have a family, but because I learned some roads must be walked in solitude. Some nights, when all I hear is the hum of servers, I remember the words. Men behind screens chase illusions. And I don't feel bitterness. I feel gratitude, because if they had believed in me, I might have played it safe. But their rejection made me fight harder than I ever thought I could. I'm not telling this story for revenge. I'm telling it for you, the one building something from nothing. The one doubted, dismissed, disrespected. Let them laugh, let them whisper, and let your work speak. Because silence and perseverance together? That's louder than applause. Thanks for watching this wild family drama. If you love Reddit family stories, subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss the next one.